And here we go again, Jake.
Mr. Gareth.
Doctor. Another episode of We're Here to Help. We're doing it again. And might I say, what a gorgeous little chapeau you're rocking today.
What's a chapeau mean?
It's French for hat.
Ooh, yeah.
It's French for hat. You've
got
got a We're Here to Help hat. Well, I mean, I like what I see.
Kevin, jump in and talk about the beautiful hat I'm wearing, because we're starting with merch.
Let's go. People want it. People clamor.
Yeah, so my fiance is a professional embroiderer. She does custom embroidery. She's also worked with Jake on Minx and a bunch of shows in the costume world. And she's helping us make hats. She's actually doing it in the other room that I'm recording in right now. And you can see there are flat brim hats, trucker hats, dad hats, a bunch of colors and cool designs at heretohelppod.com.
So if you like the show and you want a hat like Jake, do that. Also, if you want to see the show, we have a YouTube, we have, good social media. You can follow us on platforms, but let's just get into why people are here.
Hello, sorry, I couldn't hear you. 1 second.
What?
Give me 1 second. I cannot.
What is happening right now? Is
Sorry
this another
about
one
this.
of your little
I can't
plans?
hear you.
Okay, can you hear us now?
Hi.
Hi, Gareth. This is Caitlin, our social media director.
Hi.
Hi, Gareth.
And
nice to meet you.
You too.
And she made a video where she's got a little qualms. Can you please pronounce her first and last name, Gareth?
Caitlin Taramacchino.
Caitlin, would you please say it correctly so we can get on with the show?
My name is Caitlin Tanwakio.
So Caitlin,
that's super close.
You did really well.
Yeah, why have you brought her here to tell me that I did pretty well? This is
because she made a video where she said you mispronounced her name.
You've called me Garf, and it's just, when did we start respecting names on this podcast?
Caitlin, we appreciate everything you're doing. I'm definitely a Gareth girl. And Kevin, let's start this show.
Wait, what? All right, Jake, so this is sort of a meta one. This is similar to Fake Jake, which we just went through, where this is a bit of a meta episode. Nobody's calling in with a problem. I actually had a problem. I know you know a little bit about this because
I know
it kind
that
of...
we had a New York Times photo shoot.
Scheduled, and I had to bail.
Hours before you texted, I'm at the airport in London. They won't let me on a plane.
So I was in the UK for about 3 weeks, and the long and short of it is I'm a dual citizen. So I have two passports. I have a US and I have a UK passport. And I've traveled just on the UK passport before. And so this last trip, I remember distinctly looking in my desk at both of my passports and thinking, I'll just bring the UK passport.
Sounds fair.
And so no problem. You know, I did some gigs and traveled very fine. And
lived with your mom?
We don't need to keep unearthing lies. And basically, I'm at the airport. I'm at Heathrow. I have an emotional goodbye with my family. We ate a bunch of snacks in a parking lot. It's normal. And then I go there and I have my bag on the thing. You know, I mean, fully. And you know how it is when you're like, travel. I gotta fly. Oh, my life. It's so hard. I'm like in that headspace where I'm like, gosh, 11 hours. Woe's me. And I have my bag up and I hand him my passport. And the woman's like, and we just need your U.S. passport. And I'm like, oh, I don't have that. I'm like, I'll use that. And she's like, no, you need your U.S. passport. I'm like, no, I don't. I'll just use that. And she's like, no, you do. And I'm like having this, I felt the blood drain from me because there were multiple things planned. You know how it is. You're flying. You're like,
I mean, first of all, the next day we had a photo shoot.
Yes. So, and I go on tour this weekend with the Dollop. So it was like,
you had to be home.
So I'm like, what? And I spend the 5 minutes you spend in that sort of quandary of like, but please, I'll jerk off the pilot, please. And then the next thing I know, I'm outside Heathrow and I'm trying to call my buddy who's looking after my place. It's probably 3 a.m. at this point. Calling, freaking out. Tell my mother. My mother is just, who I didn't live with. My mother is just beside herself. So more emotional than I was like, please don't get this emotional. And my friend eventually calls me back and he's like, I'm like going to my desk get my passport, go find a FedEx. This is on Sunday. Go find a FedEx and see how fast they can get this to Heathrow.
The fastest is 30 hours.
No.
Okay.
Listen, I didn't exhaust every option, and you'll find out why in a second, but I was calling the embassy. I was calling the consulate.
Lord. So they were you're not getting on a
I'd
flight
called
without
American
it?
Airlines. I'd Googled, my family, my Scottish uncle was like, you go there and tell them that you'll get them bloody fired. And I'm like, I don't think that is a fruitful tactic. And
I also don't think I have that authority.
Yeah, I'm just kind of being a realist about it. I'm like, I've been in these situations before, and I'm like, this is not fight the system, become Tom Hanks in the terminal.
Right.
This is,
please, let me figure out a way to get home.
So my buddy gets my passport, but since it's Sunday, no certified international FedEx shipping place opens until noon.
Oh.
So he's like, well, I'll go to the one right near LAX at noon and I'll see what they say. And I'm looking online. To me, it said 2 to 3 business days was the fastest. So I'm on pins and needles. At this point, the ship has sailed. So I go to a hotel.
Wait, so you have now officially, there's no move. You've missed the flight officially.
The flight hasn't even taken off, but I've resigned myself to the fact that this is probably not going to happen, barring a miracle. And so I check into the hotel. I get a Heineken at check-in. I drink it. I get another Heineken. It's probably 2:30. And then I go to my room and I'm sitting there. And then my friend calls and he goes, I have bad news and fortuitous news. And I go, I don't love this. So, kind of sounded wizardy. I'm like, what? He said, the bad news is FedEx says it'll be Thursday the earliest. They can get it. It's Sunday.
This is Sunday night, yeah.
And I leave. I have shows on Saturday. So I'm like, what? I'm like, that's crazy. He goes, the fortuitous news is when I was confounded by the answer, there was a guy behind me in line who said, I'm about to go to Heathrow. I'm flying to London in like 3 hours.
Wait, what? Is this true?
Yeah. And he goes, he seems like a nice guy. He goes, he seems legit. And I go, this is just because he's in a FedEx. Yeah. He's a random guy in line. But he's like, I get a good vibe. And
incredible.
And it's my buddy Luke, and he's a very the universe might be sending us and I'm also like, yeah, but I'd also like to get back to America.
You didn't have to tell me that about Luke. You find a stranger in line who goes, I'll take that passport overseas, and he goes, he's got a good vibe. Every con man in the world has a good vibe.
So I don't know who this guy is. He puts the guy on the phone for a minute. The guy sounds nice.
And what's the guy saying to you?
I mean, I guess now's a good time to bring the guy in.
The guy's here. Amazing.
So Ben, welcome to the show. We're here to help. You're on with Jake and Gareth. And this was a time where I needed help. So my head was spinning. Ben, do you remember what the conversation was? What was the conversation even like?
I
must have sounded like
I don't remember the specifics, but what I'll say is, and I'll tell you in just a second, but like while I'm in the line, I can see Luke, and he's, the white just drained, or the blood just drained from his face, and he just went white. He was like, I don't know what to do. And I've kind of been in a similar situation where I need to send something internationally, and I knew you guys were screwed. I knew there was no way FedEx was going to be able to get anything out. It's Sunday. They're not going to send it until Monday. And as they say, the best thing you're going to do, I thought maybe Wednesday, but, Thursday wasn't outrageous. So I was sitting there and I basically am like, like you said, I'm just like, hey, I am flying to London. I don't know what your, how you feel about this, but I was coming back from a wedding up in Santa Barbara. I had 2 bags. I love to travel light. So I was just like, all right, I'm going to ship this 1 bag home and I'm going to head to the airport. I said, Luke, I'm going to ship the bag, talk to your guy, see what he feels like, and then I'll talk to you afterwards. So then, I finish my shipping, get out there, and Luke hands me the phone. And I don't remember exactly what it was, but I could hear the desperation in your voice.
It was bad.
You were just like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I need this thing. I'm like, hey guys, like I'm game for this. I know this is kind of strange, but I'm happy to do it. You guys figured out the one condition that I had was I had a little bit of a connection, and I was like, okay, look, I can't get out of the terminal, so we're going to have to figure that portion of it out. But if you guys figure that portion of it out,
You weren't finishing in London. You
No.
were going from one plane
No,
to
no.
another.
So it gets more. It
I
gets
was
more
going
complicated.
I was going to Glasgow. I'm still in Glasgow right now. But yeah, so we were like, I have some time, but I don't have a lot of time. So I'm like, look, if we can figure this portion out, I'm game. And if you guys want to, trust the stranger that kind of came up, I'm
Ben,
good to go.
Really fast before Gareth, you walk us through the next part of this. Just for a question to you, Ben. What were you thinking of getting out of this at this point? Or were you just being a good human being?
Well, I had no idea who Gareth was, and
which is really uncommon. Let me just jump in, Ben. A lot of people, that's a very uncommon headspace, but keep going.
Yeah. No. So the short answer is I really wasn't looking for anything. I just was like, look, this may work out. This is pretty easy for me. Assuming you can meet that condition. It's like, hey, I'll do it. The one thing I'll say is that I'm a dual citizenship as well. I traveled once and I used to go in with my British passport to the UK and then come into the US with my American passport. And one time when I did that, the Border Patrol of the US was like, you cannot do that. You have to travel on one passport. So I was kind of hearing from Luke, hearing the story. I was definitely empathizing with where he was at.
And I definitely, a decision had to be made quickly. That's the thing about this.
Yes.
Luke basically said, I'm going to drive you to drop off your rental car and I'll drive you to the airport. The plan was to go to the airport desk and say, because Ben had a connection that was 2 hours away, he couldn't leave the terminal, meet me, go back in because of security and customs and all that bullshit. So the idea was we'll ask someone at the desk, hey, if he brings it, can he drop it off to security? And if I meet security, or can I say I lost it and someone handed it? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Like, we're trying to conceive some of that, but a decision has to get made. Are we shitting or are we getting off the pie?
Because but by the way, Gareth, if you make the wrong call here, you don't have a passport and you're not coming home indefinitely.
So much Locked Up Abroad.
Me too.
Where this moment is the
fucked.
one. This moment is the one where you go, all right, yeah, put heroin up my ass. And then that person's like telling this story with like a scar on their face. Like, that was the worst decision I've ever made. So the decision gets made. I'm doing it. I'm
Good
in.
For you.
We start a text thread, so I'm going.
By the way, Gareth, you are earning the nickname Option 1 again.
Dude, let me tell you, the harder thing about my headspace is when you get older, it ages worse.
Agreed.
Because this is 29. This is a 29-year-old's decision. This is not a great decision. This is a chancy decision. But I'm in my 40s. This is now where like the fact that like older relatives of mine are going like, this doesn't sound like a good idea. And
you have one passport. You need it to leave. You're trusting a stranger to fly with it.
A guy that Luke met in a FedEx line.
Okay, so
20 minutes ago.
So keep going.
So I go, let's pull this trigger. Ben sends me his flight information. And now what I have to do is figure out how to get into the airport. So with Luke's help, I figure out the terminal, what terminals are leaving there. I'm just going to book a ticket to a flight that I'm not going to take.
Just
get
like
in there.
A cheap local one.
A Glasgow flight, actually. So I could have accompanied Ben if I wanted. I book that. The next day, get up early. The next day, I wake up like in Locked Up Abroad. I'm like, now I actually have to strap the kilos of coke to my chest.
Now you're about to be dressed like a snowman of cocaine, and you realize maybe I didn't make a great decision in that hotel room.
It's exactly
I watched
Locked
the
Up
same show.
Abroad. It's an amazing show. And then so I'm like, oh my God. And my mother is who I don't live with and I stayed with. She's calling me and she's going, what do you think? Do you think he'll do it? And I'm like, I don't know. Please stop questioning
it's too
this.
deep now. If you ask too many questions, I'm gonna get really insecure.
It's over. It's over. Yeah. And but then Ben starts texting me. Hey, looking like I'll get in a little early. He wants to meet at this lounge, all this stuff. I'm texting Ben. And then Ben, he tells me to meet him outside of this lounge, and I'm taking the escalator up, and I'm like, if this is a catfish, it is epic. Like, what's his kick?
Agreed. Yeah.
And instead of it all being a ruse, Ben is standing there, sends me a picture of what he looks like. I send him a picture, and I'm like, he hands it to me, and I'm like, this cannot be fucking real. I'm like, dude, you're a legend. And I mean, Ben, I don't know what I looked like when I saw Ben, you understood the emotions I was coming with, because you were very much you'd had time to think about it, because you were like, no, it's cool. And I'm like, what do you want? You name it.
Even at this point, I will say you had mentioned the podcast, and I was on the plane, and I was just like, it's a 10-hour flight, watching a couple movies. I'm just going to try to get some sleep. So at this point, I have no idea kind of, the magnitude of your podcast, or however you want to put it. So I'm just, but I'm happy to do this. I see the joy in your face that I'm actually there, and that, because I'm also thinking, not that I was ever going to do anything, but what happens if the plane's delayed? What happens if and I have to run to now what am I going to do? I've taken on this responsibility of this passport, and I was happy and relieved as well, because I didn't want to have to get into a situation where I had to make a choice of like, am I going to have to sprint to my flight and potentially screw this guy? Or, so it was both
amazing.
From both aspects. It was like, I guess you might have even you could have come to Glasgow to get it. So, that could have been an extended story. And, but yeah, so I was maybe not equally, but I was also happy that this was actually happening. And we were, in some ways it came to a, good close.
Well, it was amazing. And I posted it on my social media. And I think what happened was when I posted the A side of I did this and I don't know how this is going to end, so many people were like, hey, dumbass, enjoy the UK forever. Like there was a lot of that. But there was some
for the next 2 months.
There were a lot of people who were like, if this works, this is going to restore my faith in humanity. And not only were you so gracious to speak up, so nice to be like you want nothing, but also to just do it. I think for me and a lot of people, it was like I don't know where the karma will come from. Not me, obviously. I got nothing. But you will. It was so awesome of you to do. And when I called my mother after this, Jake, she cried.
Good. Of course she did.
Ben, thanks so much, man.
Thank you, Ben.
Hey, my pleasure.
We're Here to Help is hosted by Jake Johnson
and Gareth Reynolds.
The show is produced and edited by Kevin Bartelt.
The theme song is made by Oliver Raleigh, and you can check out all of his work at oliverraleigh.com.
The album artwork is by James Fosdyke. You can find him on Instagram at James_Fosdyke. And if you'd like to see me do stand-up on the road, go to GarethReynolds.com.
And if you would like to be on our show, please email us at helpfulpod@gmail.com.